Sarah's hands worked with mechanical precision even as chaos erupted around her. The bench's metal frame was constructed from separate pieces joined at stress points, and she had identified exactly where to apply pressure to reshape the material into something useful. She gripped two of the bench's leg supports and twisted them against each other, using the leverage to bend the metal into a more linear shape. The alloy was designed to be lightweight but durable, perfect for her needs. As she worked, plasma bolts seared the air above her head, but she remained focused on her task. "Marine down!" shouted Sergeant Rodriguez, the leader of her rescue team, as one of his soldiers took a direct hit from a Vorthak plasma rifle. "We need to move, Commander." 30 seconds? Sarah called back, her hands bleeding now as she worked the sharp edges of the metal. She had managed to straighten one of the bench supports into a rough blade shape, but it was still too dull and unbalanced to be truly effective. The key insight came when she noticed the chamber's damaged walls. The crystal composite had shattered in several places during the battle, leaving behind razor-sharp fragments scattered across the floor. She began pressing these fragments against her improvised blade, using them like whetstones to create a proper cutting edge. "The human has lost her mind," observed Kex, even as he ducked behind cover to avoid human weapons fire. "She plays with broken furniture while death surrounds her." Vorthal was more observant. "No, she's creating something." This is what she meant about adaptability. Sarah stood up, her improvised weapon complete. What had once been part of a simple bench was now a meter-long blade, sharp enough to cut flesh and balanced well enough for combat. The handle was wrapped in strips torn from her uniform sleeve, providing better grip, but it was still just a metal blade against energy weapons and armored opponents. The Vorthak warriors immediately recognized the threat level and began laughing. "The human believes she can fight plasma rifles with a crude knife," clicked one of the warriors. "How pathetically primitive." Sarah tested the blade's weight, adjusting her grip. "You're right," she said calmly. "It is primitive. That's what makes it dangerous." She moved with liquid grace, a lifetime of combat training evident in every step. The first Vorthak warrior was still raising his weapon when Sarah's blade opened his throat. The alien's chitinous armor was designed to disperse energy weapons, but it offered little protection against the focused pressure of a sharp edge. The second warrior managed to fire, but Sarah was no longer where he aimed. She had rolled left, coming up behind him with her blade already in motion. The improvised weapon punched through the gaps in his armor like it was paper. "Impossible," breathed Vorthal. "Armor designed to withstand plasma bolts, defeated by sharpened metal?" "Energy disperses," Sarah explained as she engaged the third warrior. "Kinetic force concentrates." Her blade found another gap in alien armor, and another Vorthak fell. The remaining aliens began to understand the tactical shift. Their weapons were designed for ranged combat, requiring time to aim and charge. Sarah's blade required only proximity and momentum. In the confined space of the chamber, she held every advantage, but more warriors were still pouring through the doorway, and her human rescuers were running low on ammunition. Sarah needed to end this quickly. She studied the chamber's layout, noting the position of the damaged walls and the debris scattered across the floor. Then she smiled, and the Vorthak who saw that expression felt something their species rarely experienced, genuine fear. Sarah began to move systematically through the chamber, her blade work creating a specific pattern of cuts and strikes. To the aliens, it looked like random violence. But Sergeant Rodriguez, who had trained with her for 3 years, began to understand what she was doing. "Fall back to the doorway," he ordered his Marines. "Give the commander room to work." Each of Sarah's strikes served multiple purposes. She was eliminating enemies, yes, but she was also weakening specific structural points throughout the chamber. The crystalline walls were already damaged from the battle, and she was targeting their remaining stress points with surgical precision when Kex raised his plasma rifle for what he intended to be a killing shot. Sarah threw her improvised blade with perfect accuracy. The weapon spun end over end, striking the alien center mass with enough force to punch through his armor and embed. itself in the wall behind him. Now she was truly unarmed again, surrounded by hostile aliens with energy weapons. The Vorthek began to advance. Confident that the humans' primitive advantage was spent, they were wrong. Sarah grabbed a large fragment of debris from the floor and hurled it at a specific point on the chamber's ceiling. The crystal composite was already weakened from battle damage, and her projectile struck exactly where the structural stress was greatest. The ceiling began to collapse, but not randomly. Sarah had calculated the failure pattern, and the falling debris created a domino effect that brought down specific sections of the walls. Within seconds, the chamber's structural integrity was completely compromised, but instead of crushing everyone inside, the collapse created something else, a clear path to the corridor beyond. Circumventing the choke point at the main doorway where more Vorthik warriors were waiting. "Move!" Sarah shouted, leading her Marines through the newly created exit. As they ran, she paused to retrieve her blade from Kex's body, noting with satisfaction that the improvised weapon had held its edge perfectly. They emerged into the ship's main corridor to find human Marines already controlling key sections. The rescue mission was succeeding, but Sarah's contribution had been crucial. Without her actions in the detention chamber, the team would never have escaped the trap. "Commander," panted Sergeant Rodriguez as they reached the extraction point. "That was the most incredible piece of tactical improvisation I've ever witnessed." Sarah cleaned her blade on a piece of cloth torn from a fallen alien's uniform. "The Vorthik made one critical error in their assessment of human capabilities." "What's that?" "They assumed that being unarmed meant being helpless. They forgot that humans don't just use weapons." She held up her improvised blade, its edge still sharp despite the heavy use. "We make them." Later, aboard the human rescue ship, Sarah would learn that her escape had provided crucial intelligence about Vorthak ship construction and tactical doctrine. The information extracted from her observations during captivity would prove instrumental in humanity's eventual victory in the sector, but more importantly, word of her improvised weapon spread throughout both human and alien forces. The story of the human who forged a blade from furniture became legend, a symbol of human adaptability and refusal to accept defeat. The Vorthik eventually learned to respect human ingenuity, but they never truly understood it. Their rigid, technology-dependent mindset couldn't grasp the fundamental truth about humanity. Given enough motivation and raw materials, a human could turn anything into a weapon. Sarah kept the blade as a reminder of that principle. In her quarters, mounted above her desk, it served as a constant testament to the most important lesson in human warfare, the most dangerous. Human is not the one with the most advanced weapons, but the one who refuses to believe they're helpless. The metal had been bent, shaped and sharpened by necessity in the heat of battle. It wasn't beautiful or elegant like traditional weapons, but it had done its job when everything depended on it, just like humanity itself. The Vorthak ship lurched again, this time hard enough to send the smaller interrogator stumbling against the crystalline wall. Sarah maintained her balance easily, her body automatically adjusting to the ship's violent movements with practiced ease. "Hull breach on deck 7, announced a mechanical voice throughout the vessel. "All personnel to battle stations." The lead interrogator's compound eyes flicked between Sarah and the chamber's exit. She could see the conflict in his alien features: stay and guard the prisoner, or join the defense of his ship. The decision was made for him when another violent impact sent him sprawling across the floor. "Kex, Vorthal," he barked to his companions, "secure the human. I must coordinate our defenses." As the senior alien rushed from the chamber, Sarah began to move. Not toward the exit or in any obvious escape attempt, but slowly around the room's perimeter, her fingers trailing along the smooth walls as if she were merely pacing nervously. "Stay still." "Human," ordered Kex, the smaller but more aggressive alien. "Any movement toward the door will result in immediate termination." Sarah nodded compliant, continuing her seemingly aimless wandering. What the aliens didn't realize was that she was conducting a thorough tactical assessment of her environment. The chamber measured approximately 4 meters by 6 meters. The walls appeared to be some form of reinforced crystal composite, likely decorative rather than structural. Most importantly, she had spotted what she was looking for. In the center of the room sat a simple metal bench, clearly designed for alien physiology but functional nonetheless. To the Vorthek it was furniture. To Sarah it was raw material. Vorthel, the third interrogator, was monitoring communications from the ongoing battle. "The human fleet employs strange tactics," he reported to his companion. "They target our engine arrays instead of our weapon systems. Most illogical." Sarah almost laughed. The Vorthek still didn't understand. Humans didn't just think about winning individual battles. They thought about winning wars. Disabled ships could be captured, their technology studied, their crews interrogated. Destroyed ships yielded nothing useful. Another massive impact shook the vessel, and this time the lights flickered before emergency power kicked in. Through the chamber's viewing port, Sarah caught a glimpse of human fighters weaving between Vorthek capital ships like impossible silver needles. Their pilots pulling maneuvers that would liquefy most alien species. "How do your pilots survive such acceleration forces?" Vorthel asked, genuine scientific curiosity overcoming his hostility. "Evolution," Sarah replied simply. "We're descended from persistence hunters. We don't give up and we don't break easily." Kex clicked his mandibles dismissively. "Biological advantages mean nothing in modern warfare. Superior technology always prevails." "Really?" Sarah gestured toward the viewing port where another Vorthek cruiser was limping away from the battle, its engines dark. "How's that superior technology working out for you?" Before either alien could respond, the chamber door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. 3 Vorthek warriors in full combat armor charged through the breach, their plasma weapons scanning for threats. "Emergency evacuation protocols," shouted their leader. "All prisoners to be transferred to the secure detention level." Kex pointed at Sarah. "The human commander refuses to cooperate. Orders are to keep her alive for information extraction." "Orders have changed," the warrior replied coldly. "High Command wants all captured humans eliminated immediately. They're too dangerous to keep aboard during combat." Sarah's blood ran cold, but her mind remained sharp. She was out of time. The rescue attempt had forced the Vorthek to accelerate their timeline, and she was about to be executed as a liability. As the aliens debated her fate in their rapid, clicking language, Sarah began to move. Not toward any of them, but toward the metal bench in the chamber's center. Her movements were casual, non-threatening, as if she were simply seeking a place to sit while awaiting her fate. "The human has accepted her death," observed Vorthel. "See how she prepares to meet it with dignity." None of them noticed Sarah's hands exploring the bench's construction as she settled onto it. The metal was some form of lightweight alloy, strong, but not brittle. More importantly, one of the bench's support struts had been damaged during the recent impacts, leaving a sharp, jagged edge where it had partially torn free. The lead warrior raised his plasma rifle, its energy cell beginning to hum with lethal charge. "By order of the Vorthek High Command, you are sentenced to immediate termination for crimes against the Empire." "Wait," Sarah said quietly, standing up from the bench. In the same motion, her hand closed around the damaged strut. "I have information about human fleet positions. Strategic intelligence that could turn this battle." The warrior hesitated, his weapon still trained on her but his finger easing off the trigger. "Speak quickly." Sarah moved closer, ostensibly to share classified information, but actually to test the strut's flexibility. The metal was already stressed from the damage, and with the right leverage, she could snap it free entirely. "Our fleet command ship is the UES Defiance," she began, her voice low and urgent. "It's coordinating the attack from coordinates ... She let her voice trail off as another massive explosion rocked the ship. "Continue," demanded the warrior, leaning forward to hear over the battle sounds. "The coordinates are ... Sarah twisted the damaged strut hard to the left. The metal snapped with a sharp crack, leaving her holding a jagged piece of alloy roughly 60 centimeters long. "Right behind you." The chamber's viewing port exploded outward as human marines in powered armor came crashing through. their entry precisely timed with Sarah's distraction. But even as her rescuers engaged the Vorthek guards, she realized they were outnumbered. More alien warriors were pouring through the damaged doorway, their plasma weapons lighting up the chamber with deadly energy. The human Marines were skilled, but they were facing overwhelming numbers in confined space. Sarah looked at the sharp piece of metal in her hand, then at the bench from which she had torn it. The Vorthek had been right about one thing. They had successfully disarmed her of every traditional weapon. They had just failed to understand that to a human, everything was a potential weapon. The broken strut was sharp, but it wouldn't be enough against armored opponents with energy weapons. She needed something better, something that could cut through Vorthek combat armor and level the playing field. As plasma bolts seared the air around her, Sarah dropped to her knees beside the metal bench and began working with desperate efficiency. Her hands moved with practiced skill, bending and shaping the remaining metal supports, using the chamber's damaged walls as leverage points. "What is the human doing?" shouted one of the Vorthek warriors over the sound of weapons fire. Sarah didn't answer. She was too busy forging a weapon from their furniture. Commander Sarah Chun stood motionless in the center of the crystalline detention chamber, her hands clasped behind her back as 3 Vorthek interrogators circled her like predators. The aliens' chitinous shells clicked against the smooth floor with each step, their compound eyes studying every inch of her standard-issue Earth Fleet uniform. "The human claims to be a military officer," hissed the lead Vorthek, its mandibles clicking in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of laughter. "Yet she carries no plasma rifle, no energy sword, no molecular disruptor. How can one be a warrior without proper weapons?" Sarah remained silent, watching the aliens through peripheral vision. The Vorthek had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade, their reputation built on overwhelming firepower and advanced weaponry. They couldn't comprehend that humans might approach warfare differently. The second interrogator, smaller but more aggressive, jabbed a claw toward her belt. "Empty holsters, Commander Chun. Your own species has abandoned you. They sent you here defenseless, expecting us to show mercy to the weak." "Perhaps," the third one suggested, its voice a wet whisper, "this is how humans surrender. They send their most pathetic specimens to grovel before superior beings." Sarah's jaw tightened slightly, but she maintained her composure. 3 days ago, her ship had been captured during a reconnaissance mission in the disputed Kepler sector. The Vorthek had stripped away all obvious weapons before throwing her into this cell, confident that an unarmed human posed no threat to their plans. They were about to learn how wrong they could. The lead interrogator activated a holographic display showing Earth fleet positions throughout the sector. "Your fleet believes they can challenge the Vorthek Empire. Tell us their defensive positions, and we might allow your species to exist as our slaves rather than extinction." "I've already told you," Sarah replied calmly, her first words in hours. "Name, rank, and serial number. That's all you're getting from me." The alien's shell flushed a deep purple indicating rage. "Stubborn creature. Do you not understand? We have analyzed your biology. Humans are soft, weak. Your bones break easily. Your skin tears. You have no natural armor, no claws, no fangs. You are prey animals playing at being predators." Sarah almost smiled at that. The Vorthek had studied human anatomy but completely missed the point. They saw weakness where humans saw adaptability. They saw limitations where humans saw opportunities. "Your species has survived through tool use," continued the interrogator. "But without tools, you are nothing. Less than nothing. We have examined every molecule of your clothing, every fiber of your uniform. No hidden weapons, no concealed devices. You are truly, utterly helpless." The chamber's walls displayed images of human settlements under Vorthek attack, cities burning under plasma bombardment. Psychological warfare, Sarah realized. They wanted to break her spirit before extracting information. "Look at your colonies burning," whispered the second alien. "This is what happens to species that defy us. Your people die because you refuse to cooperate. Their blood is on your hands, Commander. Sarah studied the images with professional detachment. She noted the Vorthic attack patterns, their vehicle formations, their tactical preferences. Every piece of information might prove useful later, assuming she lived long enough to use it. The lead interrogator moved closer, its breath smelling like sulfur and decay. We know about human psychology. You form emotional attachments to other individuals. These images show a human child injured in one of our raids. Perhaps she reminds you of someone? A sister? A daughter? For the first time, Sarah's expression faltered slightly. The child in the image couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Her face streaked with dirt and tears as medics carried her from the rubble of what had once been a school. Ah. We see recognition, hissed the second alien. Tell us what we want to know, and we can ensure no more children are harmed. Continue to resist, and we will make sure they suffer first. Sarah's hands clenched into fists behind her back, but she forced herself to remain calm. The Vorthak were skilled at psychological manipulation, but they made one crucial error. They assumed that because she appeared unarmed, she was truly helpless. The third interrogator approached from her blind spot, attempting to startle her. Your silence speaks volumes, human. You care more about your pride than your species' survival. How very primitive. My species survived ice ages, plague outbreaks, and world wars before we ever left Earth, Sarah said quietly. We didn't do it with superior firepower or advanced technology. We did it with something you clearly don't understand. Enlighten us, clicked the lead alien mockingly. Adaptability? We don't just use tools. We make them. From anything, anywhere, anytime. The aliens exchanged glances, their compound eyes reflecting uncertainty for the first time since her capture. Something in her tone suggested confidence. They hadn't expected from a seemingly defeated prisoner. The chamber's lighting dimmed as the Vorthak ship entered what appeared to be a combat zone. Distant explosions echoed through the hull, and Sarah felt the subtle shift in the ship's motion that indicated evasive maneuvers. It seems your fleet has arrived, noted the lead interrogator, though he didn't sound concerned. How unfortunate for them. They will witness the death of their precious commander before they join her in oblivion. Sarah listened carefully to the sounds of battle outside. The rhythm of the explosions, the duration of the ship's course corrections, the increasing frequency of impact vibrations against the hull. Her people weren't just mounting a rescue attempt. They were winning. The second alien activated a communication device, speaking rapidly in their native language. Sarah caught fragments of the conversation and realized the Vorthak were genuinely surprised by human tactical effectiveness. Your species fights like nothing we have encountered, admitted the third interrogator, his earlier arrogance replaced by grudging respect. They use unconventional strategies, unpredictable attack patterns. Our battle computers cannot anticipate their moves. That's because you think like machines, Sarah replied. Humans think like survivors. The ship shuddered violently, and emergency lighting activated throughout the chamber. The lead alien spoke urgently into his communicator, then turned back to Sarah with newfound desperation. This changes nothing. You are still our prisoner, still helpless. Even if your fleet somehow breaches our defenses, you will not live to see rescue. Sarah's smile was cold and confident. You keep using that word, helpless. I don't think it means what you think it means.